Welcome to Jaded and Faded Convos. I am your host, Jaded Pearl, and welcome to another episode. We is on episode 4, and of course, like the others, I hope you enjoyed this one. And as for the others, they are definitely listed, so please watch those, or watch your favorite, or watch a topic that you just like. Oh, I think I want to listen to that one. Go ahead and do that. And I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's episode of Polish Therapy. But, and it's a lot of but situation, okay? Pun intended always here. Yes, all booties matter around here. Alright, so Polish Therapy. What does that mean exactly? Okay? So, as we know, we have different versions of therapy. Okay? When it comes to therapy, as we typically will do for the ones who are able to have access to it and whatnot, and it's definitely a part of their journey when it comes to their well-being. You have your therapy, whether that's in person or virtual, to work out a lot of issues that we may have, of course, within ourselves, a lot of traumatic situations that we're still trying to overcome and have a better um, coping exercises and coping mechanisms to go along with that, and to really gain more clarity as for how we operate so that we can, of course, lead better lives for ourselves, right? Then you have the different versions of therapy outside of your typical one that you are having just a conversation with somebody, and they, of course, giving you some really sound advice on what to work on, really paying attention to some things that you probably were not aware of within yourself, and how to be able to hone in on that for the sake of being a better person. The different versions, of course, is anything that you feel like is therapy to you. For example, you have, of course, people that they do crochet and knitting. That, of course, could be therapy. For me, I also love coloring. I'm a grown woman that loves coloring still. So that, of course, is therapy for me. Some people love painting. Some people love going to exotic locations for therapy. That's what we're going to say today. Exotic locations for therapy. You have some people who enjoy bike riding. They enjoy hiking. They enjoy nature. And then, of course, you have people that enjoy dancing for therapy. Or, of course, they go to a dance studio for therapy, right? So, always goes back to why anyone would want to go to a dance studio. Of course, it does not just narrow down to pole, but of course, pole is definitely a very common denominator of a lot of these conversations I be having with y'all, for the obvious reasons. So, when it comes down to that level of therapy, what does pole do for you? Is the question that I like to ask people, as well as being asked whenever the question, of course, comes about. And for me personally, when it comes to pole, it is one of those things that I think about every day now. I'm thinking about whether it's to be able to learn a routine and teach. It is to think of a set that I want to be able to create for a future performance whenever. It's something that makes me feel sexy and gives me the drive to want to be even more sensual and delicious with my body, whether I'm actually dancing or if I'm just existing, in a way that is pretty for me. Of course, it hurt like a bitch when it comes down to the learning aspect of it, but I always go back to, for me, it's the level of fitness that I will commit to. Of course, growing up as a child, fitness just was not one of those things I saw a lot in my family. I saw food a lot, for damn sure. and all of that came along with that. And when it came to doing, of course, anything physical, most of the time that's at school, it's at during PE and stuff. And that was what that was, of course, and being a chubby kid and not being able to keep up with the rest of the other kids and stuff. And so I had to learn my own way when it came to the physical aspect of it, as far as wanting to be healthy and do more active things with my body and whatnot. And, those things, of course, did come over time as I became an adult. And then when I found dance and what it did for me, and then I found out, oh, I have to still remember to breathe while I do these things. Then I realized, oh yeah, this stuff really is a workout. And so, but I enjoyed the challenge for me. I enjoyed being able to really set my body up to learn. And as much as you go through the, oh, am I ever gonna get this done? Oh, am I ever gonna do this right? Da 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 da. And it's, I just feel and look so weird. Come with time. And over time, I learned to have this, what do I call it? My pole, I'm Tina, and the pole is Ike. Now, sometimes Ike might win, and then sometimes Tina might. Then sometimes me and them both be fighting. We gonna come out alive at some point, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Tina Turner. She was amazing. Just putting that out there. But that's for me, to really get through that battle as far as dance goes. But it is still my haven. It is my safe haven. It is my grounds of wanting to learn, wanting to build myself up better, wanting to get out of my comfort zone, and ultimately connect with wonderful people in the process of me learning different things about myself, about my level of strength, and building on that as I go. So when it comes to pole being considered therapy, from business owners to students, having access to a pole studio can give you a plethora of different things. One, it is obviously community, within, of course, a beautiful crowd of people. I say people because, of course, obviously everybody can pole, so you can definitely, of course, find your pole sister, maybe your pole brother, your pole mama, auntie, uncle. It's obviously for everybody. So being able to have the community, based off of that alone, having a unlimited amount of love and support in a really awesome environment, as well as being able to have these lifelong enjoyment of folks with your journey to go. So it's not someone that you just see at a pole class. It's somebody that you can be able to have later on into things that you create, and part, of course, your business, and part, of course, your family, and building on that over time. That does happen a lot, as we see when it comes to a lot of dance studios. However, one thing that we do see sometimes when it comes to, how can I explain this? People coming in with initially good intentions, and then it turn around and you start seeing not so green flags. We ain't gonna say just red flags. We'll just say not so green. And the reason why I say that is because it really could be a situation where people can come in with, again, one intention, and then turn around. There's something else to it. There's layers to it. And it could be not so green, but it also could be a situation where maybe they're not aware of the thing that they're doing that could possibly be, a hindrance to their journey, maybe a detriment to, of course, how they connect with people. Self-sabotaging with how they communicate with themselves and folks around them, all those different things that can be considered. And then there's other situations where, it's for sure not green at all. It's the trauma bonding that can really take place within a certain space. So I'm going to give, of course, as always, a little snippet of what have experienced, and then kind of go into, okay, this is a way to get around that, identifying some things, and maybe, of course, some of this stuff can be, pretty relatable to you in some way. Or it might be like, hey, I heard you, but I also experienced this way type shit. Could be. So, for example, for me, sometimes when people bond over a situation, it could really be based off of everybody in this particular matter have experienced something that was not so favorable. It's been 2 instances I can tell you for sure. Actually, a couple instances in my life, where I was able to connect with some really awesome people, but the way that I connected with them was because there was a person in the center of all of the connections to all of us, but they were the culprit, they were the issue, and we had to pretty much eliminate that in order for everybody else to just be cool. I can absolutely name 3 instances that has ever happened to me, particularly. One, oh gosh, I was staying in Augusta at this time. Lord have mercy. It's been a minute. And it was this girl that seemed to be cool, but then me and her friends basically ended up being friends without her, because we found out that she was causing unnecessary messiness that didn't need to happen at all, and it was just awkward. And to this day, I still talk to a great deal of the people from that particular connection and circle of people. Another instance, I don't know if I'll ever talk about this one out loud, as far as in detail, but there was a time I was a part of a sorority that, come to find out, was low-key but high-key a cult. Spiritual sorority at that. And had to find out the center of that situation was particularly one of the organizers. And I ended up coming out of there with my first line sisters, as far as connected with them, because we all ended up leaving from that when we realized the bullshit that was in the center of a lot of weird stuff that was taking place, like the whole, wolf in sheep's clothing, the cloaking, the what's the other terms that we would say in those ways? A spiritual covering on bullshit, basically. So, yeah, definitely got the fuck out of there. But again, because of that situation, I met a great deal of wonderful people that I still connect with to this day. Then the last time I can for sure say was at a dance studio. And again, not intended that it just happened to be where we're all bonding from a traumatic situation from this particular person, but it ended up being that way just because everybody felt like, yeah, I deserve better and I need to get elsewhere and get the fuck away from here. And to this day, I still connect with all of those people and have blossomed and done amazing things with them to this day. And that, in a lot of ways, you would say, like, yeah, we kind of bonded over that level of trauma. But it wasn't to the degree where, to this day, that is what makes our connection, if that makes sense. It's one of those things where, hey, you do this, you do that. Oh, this is wonderful. Oh, this is great. And it just so happened to be that we met the way that we did. But it doesn't take away the fact that because of this situation occurring, we don't know had we been able to cross paths without it, right? But because it did happen, it's like, damn, do we connect based off, of course, the trauma? Like, can we be cool outside of it? And thankfully, of course, I have been able to connect with people outside of that, because one thing you don't want to do is let your trauma define you. Define you in a way that this is what you're all about. And then when you're doing it from a perspective of being in a dance studio, you certainly don't want that type of credibility, or lack thereof in this case, on your name, or that reputation more so, because every time you come around, oh, here go the messy person, oh, here come those clique of people that do this and that and the third, and they talk about people, oh, this, you know what I'm saying? Like, it really becomes a situation where, are you really here for the really awesome positive benefits of pole, or is this just a trauma ground, stomping grounds for you? You know, so really having to take that type of stuff in consideration when you are connecting with people. Like I say, not just of course in pole, it's definitely in all aspects of your life. So when it comes to the pole therapy aspect of it, having it to really serve some really awesome things that you didn't realize that were a part of you. Like, for example, one thing I like to think about when it comes to pole, especially when it comes to achieving certain moves, is when to let go and when to hold on. Because as we know, a lot of aspects of pole is being able to, typically we always hear, you know, act like you're pulling the pole from the ceiling. So of course having to really hold on at the right times, and then being able to let go, because sometimes we don't want to let go. We too afraid to, you know, get up a certain move. We don't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel secure. And for me, I always go off of those two things as far as like, well, that applies to life in a lot of ways. There's some things where we have to be able to let go so that we can be able to nail whatever it is, or let go so that something that needs to come in can come in. And then the parts where we have to really be able to hold on to, or in that case is being able to keep your focus, making sure that you're not wavering anywhere else, and that you're staying right where you need to be in order to get something done, get it achieved. So that is my little therapization. I don't know if that's a word, but whatever. Of a reference that I like to think about when it comes to dance and life overall too. When it comes to, of course, pole and therapy, and going specifically into owners, actual owners. So I talked about this a little bit when it came to terms and conditions of a studio, for people to actually be, of course, a part of a studio. And I got into the conversation a little bit about owners when it comes down to the reason why a studio exists. And a good bit of times a studio can exist simply because they probably were at a studio before, they probably was an instructor there for some time, and the instructor at that previous location probably wasn't treating them as well as they could have, and there were a lot of back and forth, a lot of tension that was being done, and to the point where that person decided, you know what, fuck this, I'm gonna go ahead and go to my own place, get my own studio somewhere, and boom, bada busted, right? Then they, of course, get people and whatnot, whether it's from the old studio or new folks or whatever, and everything seems to be okay until that same owner, that new owner, is now doing the same shit that the previous owner did. Which means not only did you leave that studio space with this spitefulness, you also left with trauma that you never addressed. You never addressed issues within yourself, within the opposing party in this case, so that you're not carrying that over to your new space. You're not carrying that over into your business etiquette, the way that you operate, of course, with your instructors and of course your students. Like, you never really got that. And a lot of owners, for real, do that repeatedly. And it's like, now you have to ask yourself, why did you open up the space? Same reason why did you, of course, want to go into pole? Is it to do something for the better of womankind or mankind or everybody kind for dance? Or is it because, well, I didn't like how they did, of course, me at this such and such, I'm gonna go ahead and open up my own space? Now it's giving a lot of unnecessary anguish with opening course of space and trying to prove something to somebody else other than yourself. So that's definitely one thing in particular that I notice when it comes to it's therapy, but are you using it to cover up other deep rooted issues that's going on? Like, for example, I have seen a lot where people will dance their ass off, which is perfectly fine. But they'll be so overconsumed within dance that to the point where it no longer becomes an art form, it's now a trauma form. It's something that they now associate with almost like, you know, having a drinking addiction, having a drug addiction, and to the point where it can get a little unsafe, especially if you're not doing a proper rest and recovery, if you're not um, really paying attention to the overconsumption. Sometimes that can be a lot. If we're only dancing because we want to do it just for the likes and the views, and we're not actually conditioning our bodies, we are not really taking it seriously to where we're being good to ourselves. We are treating our bodies properly when it comes to, of course, dance, because dance is not pole for sure, but dance in general is not something that you just can just jump into whenever the fuck you feel like it. Some people probably, depending on their level of skill and expertise, but most of us, even myself for sure, I still gotta, practice. I still have to build on my craft. You know what I'm saying? Because if I just decide to say fuck it and just dance just whenever, however, and don't do no type of practicing at all, it's like at that point, what's the point of you doing any of this shit? It's really for show. And some people, of course, do that for show as well. And which is nothing entirely wrong with it, but make sure, of course, you're doing it right. And that's just one of those things I feel like people really need to pay attention to when it goes back to what is your why for doing anything. Are you dancing because you're trying to cover up issues that you are afraid to admit to, and therefore that is your escape? And again, both the things can coexist. They can coexist from a place of, yes, I am using this as my escape from whatever's going on at home, so I can be able to just let my mind release and my body just flow. And then there's the part where I'm trying to escape because I don't want to deal with this issue ever. So this is my way to not deal with it. They can coexist, and they also are great at not coexisting together. So yes, for me, I have a day job that definitely takes a lot out of me. And it's one of those things where I'm like, if I don't dance, I'm going to crash the fuck out. But I also have therapy as well. I have my therapist that I talk to. So aside from me, of course, getting on the pole and doing the things I need to do or getting on the floor, I also will talk to my therapist about some various things that my pole can't understand. You get what I'm saying? And when it comes to therapy, I do understand that for some people it may not be necessarily accessible at that time. Therefore, you do have a lot of resources that people can use, whether it be through some people's employer, to be able to get, of course, help for free or for discount, as well as what's another way that people, of course, get therapy. I think there's also volunteer lines, volunteer resources that people can actually come in and actually be someone that they can have somebody to actually talk to if it's something that they can't get through, like their insurance or not being able to pay out of pocket. Different ways to be able to, of course, do that. But to know that there's something else that you can do outside of fully submerging yourself into dance to not deal with certain problems, So really taking that into consideration when it goes back into your why, and really paying attention to how do you feel when you are dancing? How do you feel when you're connecting with your dance sisters? and cousins and uncles and aunties and mamas and whatnot. Are you feeling uplifted when you leave out of class? Do you feel like you uplifted someone else, or do you feel like you weighed down somebody, or somebody weighed you down? Do you feel in high spirits when you are connecting with the pole and with your community, or are you feeling spiteful? Like all those things that I definitely want you guys to pay attention to more when it comes down to connecting with your body, connecting, of course, with your your world of dance, and making sure you're doing it in a very safe and fulfilling way. So that is all I have for tonight. I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode. Definitely meet me back here the following Sunday for our future ones, and I got a couple of new little things I'm gonna be start doing for the next episodes coming. So stay in tune for that one. And I hope you guys, of course, are well. Thank you so much, of course, for joining me. Again, this is Jaded and Faded Convos. I am your host, Jayla Pearl, and I'll see you. Take care.